my panelists on up here. Scott Reed, Chris Riall, Tim Sassenrath, and John Cerreta. Please come on up and take your place. So as they're taking their seats, I want to introduce this austere group. Scott Reed is a GE Aviation Director for T700 U.S. military turboshaft engines. Scott's been associated with the partnership here at CCAD since 2000. He comes to us today from Lynn, Massachusetts to share his partnership insight. Chris Riall from Honeywell is a T-55 platform director. He serves as director for T-55 engine platform within Honeywell Defense and Aerospace. He's responsible for business and sales leadership to the Army and aftermarket segments. So thanks, Scott. I think you're coming to us from Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Right? Tim Sassenrath, also known as 21st Commander of Corpus Christi Army Depot, is a Vice President for Vertical Lift Sustainment, Global Services and Support for Boeing. He is responsible for leading a global team focused on providing readiness and after-delivery support for the AH-64 Apache, the AH-6, the CH-47 Chinook, and a V-22 Osprey. His current portfolio includes more than 2,000 aircraft for more than 20 customers across the globe. And last but not least, John Cerreta, Sikorsky Black Hawk Program Manager, joins us today from Connecticut. John is the Black Hawk Program Manager for Sikorsky. He has oversight of the largest production line at Sikorsky and serves as the sustainment point of contact for his largest customer, the United States Army. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me up here today. So the way we thought we'd run this is I'm going to ask each one of these gentlemen a question. And they're going to give me, hopefully, a kind answer. Some of these questions are challenging what we do in the organic industrial base, challenging CCAD and our business systems. So I've given them these questions in advance, and I have not read their answers. But they're not softballs. But those questions are generated. We came up with these questions to generate some conversation and some questions. So whether you're a CCADer or someone else in the defense industry or anybody from the community here, we welcome any questions. So the first question I got, I'm going to ask Scott. Sir, what is the value for an OEM to partner with the organic industrial base, in this case, for you to partner with CCAD?
How about if Chris fields that question for
Oh, was that Chris's?
That's all right.
Was that Chris's?
It's Chris.
You got Chris.
Okay, my bad. Chief of Staff, my cards are wrong.
Yeah.
Who? Okay.
Can I field that one for you?
Yes.
I'd be delighted to field
Yep.
that one for you. First of all, I'm Chris Riall with Honeywell. On here, we have the partner. We've had the partnership program down here now for about 11 years on the T-55 engine on here. So dealing with CCAD for an OEM such as Honeywell, partnering with the organic industrial base provides an opportunity for us to balance the risk and the investment that we've made, together with the investment that the organic industrial base has made in the plant, equipment, and skilled artisans to support the T-55 engine. Over the years, we've worked both to balance the risk on the upside and the downside. As we were ramping up over the last 11 years, on here, Honeywell provided backup support then initially, as you've initially brought the T-55 on board, so we provided a significant amount of support, transitioned that over to ensure that we met all the readiness requirements for operations enduring freedom and Iraqi freedom. And now that as that draws down, we're able to then minimize our capacity and shift a larger burden over then to the capabilities here at CCAD. Secondly, we get on a regular basis as an OEM. On here we are able to maximize where the repairs work is done. In other words, on the most cost-effective solution. The investment that they have made here at CCAD and in the organic industrial base allows us then to source repairs where we can get the biggest bang for the buck, reduce the cost. On here, we have, incidentally, CCAD has currently made the investment here in the tooling and the test capability for testing fuel controls. That's an area we'd be delighted, and we're working to see if we can utilize that capability on here for Honeywell's requirements as well as for some of our commercial requirements as well.
Oh, excellent.
So finally on here, one of the things that we really get as an OEM is you can't beat the database that we acquire then through the facility here. In other words, the things that you guys run into on a regular basis as an OEM. That allows us then to bring our engineering expertise together with skilled artisans here at CCAD to develop the most cost-effective solutions. And we see some strange things coming through on a regular basis.
That doesn't surprise me. Cool. Chris, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that topic from anybody in the audience?
Where's Art? Art Gomez. Huh? Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, second question for John. Sir, with the partnerships existing now for more than a decade, and as we sequentially enter really what's going to be the fourth iteration of multi-year TELS contracts, do you see any areas or opportunities where we can dynamically increase the value of the contracts and partnership, both for the government and for the OEMs?
For us as well, sure. Absolutely, we see the next big step is going to be, what we see is data share, meaning your LMP implementation, your shop floor control, similar repair bombs as we share that with each other. Now it's going to be real-time data transfer that I think is going to make, the next big value to the Army, value to us. What do we forecast? It's still old methodology, past usage, things like that. I think the next big step, sir, is going to be LMP, RSAP, EDI type transfer. You do a scrap transaction on the floor, that's ordering a part from central warehouse. It's real time got into the depot. I mean, this is the next big technology transfer we can do with each other. That's what I see as number one is, that big leap in the real savings to the, mostly to the Army, but a big savings to us as well is what to buy, what to forecast, things like that. So, next will be mic model introduction. It's currently a Lima Alpha conversation here at the depot. Mic model's coming next. All of the DIMWAR development, we're going to be working with the PM office, things like that. But, getting all that valve air done down here, airframe changes, airframe DIMWAR, all that next big leap, that's going to be the next TELS and the next TELS. That's really where we're going to go, is getting the mic model introduced to the depot, and that'll become the next big thing here. That's what we see at Sikorsky.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I think that's, from our perspective, we know that we've made a heavy investment into and volunteered to be a pilot site for shop floor automation, the second iteration, which we call CAMS, of our ERP system, LMP. And we are fully embracing it because we know that we desperately need it. Number one, I think that you'll get better data from us, which obviously we need to have better data for ourselves, which, as you say, will significantly help in forecasting and making sure we do have the right parts in the right place at the right time at the lowest possible cost. So, very grateful for your answer. Thank you, sir. Any questions specifically on that topic? No? Okay. Must be getting close to beer 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
All righty. So my next question is for Mr. Sassenrath. As we are currently in a period of less demand for U.S. government weapon system sustainment due to the drawdown of combat efforts and also ARI and Budget Control Act related issues, and really the overall reduction of the size of the Army, discussions have turned to leveraging any ideas or initiatives where partnership and contracts, specifically in this case, the technical, engineering, logistics, supplies, and services contracts, can be leveraged to increase workload in our plants and continue to exercise the supply chain. Any thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, so not only not a softball, a bit of a hand grenade, but that's good. Boeing's recognized, as we all have really over the last 5 years, that we were going to have a drawdown in the domestic workload. And so we're all living with that. I think we can agree the environment's changed significantly. So with that, we've really worked on how do we reduce our footprint, We've closed down some places from a Boeing defense perspective. We've used partnering for success where we're teaming with our suppliers to try to reduce our costs. So we're taking a lot of those actions environmentally. And over the last 5 years, we've really increased our focus on our international business, as everybody has, just as you were talking about with the Army wanting to go to more FMS. And with that, in my portfolio, I've got 17 countries, international customers for Chinook, and 12 international customers for Apache. For Apache, that's mostly FMS. For Chinook, it's a mixture of both. But what I would tell you on the FMS side that you specifically asked, other than the same types of work that we get for the U.S. government, the PBL, those type of things, the FMS work really, frankly, isn't coming to us. And in Chinook, it's very little. We're talking extremely small that we see. But that doesn't mean there's not some great opportunities. So within the FMS work that's out there, currently about 50% of that work is done by CCAD. There's an opportunity for the other 50%. And it's not that CCAD has said, no, I won't do that work. There's very good reasons why CCAD is either not able to do the work because maybe they don't have the original manufacturer of whatever the component is. They don't have the data rights to it, or they don't have the drawings, or they don't have a current line that's doing it and the quantities are not sufficient to make a business case. Or they haven't had the opportunity to forecast for that particular item so that they can turn it around in the time frame required by that FMS customer. So there's a lot of really good reasons we think we can get at to get that extra 50%. So with that, we've held a few workshops between Boeing and CCAD looking at how we can get to some of those and increase that ability to bring in that work. And there's a couple of courses of action we've looked at. One is CCAD, we better position CCAD through engineering and forecasting, and CCAD gets more of that work. Or through some innovative contracting, perhaps some of that work comes, we take on the pieces that CCAD can't do or isn't a good business case for, and they complete the portions of that work that they have the core competence in so that we can load that more. So the partnership is really about being in it through thick and thin. And I think it's more important to be in it through thin than thick. It's always going to do this. The depot is going to grow and flex its muscle and be the savior when we need it. And there's going to be times when it's going to get thin. And our revenues go down right along with it. So it's to our advantage to push everything we can to the depot. The other piece in the CSA agreements is, as I mentioned, we've got direct commercial sales. So we do have some of those that we've competed for with against another aircraft, against another company, whatever the case may be, and we have that work. For that, it's even more important that the supplier that we use has got that we can close a good business case that is cost effective to go to that supplier. So it's important, and we're part of this. We're a partner with CCAD. So it's important for us as a team to find a way to get the cost down to be cost competitive with industry so CCAD can be that go-to second source. CCAD's got a lot of things going for it. It's got an awesome workforce. It's got some great capital investments. We'd like to leverage some of those things. Some of the things we're doing now, but frankly, it's just not enough. So on the Apache PBL under CSA, we've got elbows, side loaders, and grips. We're looking at CH-47 ramps and some IDIQ programs. What I'd really like to do as we go into the Echo model Apache is when we get to the point, which once we field enough aircraft, we'll get to a point where we're looking at needing a second source. The amount of transmissions and Echo model stuff coming through is very minimal right now because we just simply don't have critical mass to have enough of that going through. We'd like to see CCAD be cost competitive so we can use you. You've already got the test cells, you've already got all the things you need to be able to do the Echo model transmission. The blades for the Echo model are a little bit different in that almost all those repairs are going to be fielded in the IATM this coming year. Most of those repairs are AVIM level tasks to include the plugs. So right now there's not a lot of depot repairs. We haven't had one fail for a depot repair yet. So as that happens, we see that as well. So a lot of advantages to working with CCAD. We'd like to fill the depot with work, bring the cost down. We still, as a partner, we get to sell you the piece parts to make the end item. So it's all good for us. It reduces the cost of the depot and will bring more work in here.
Thanks, and that was a very gracious answer. And if I could just dovetail into that, for the CCADers have been hearing me talk about it, and Mr. Cook and Mr. Sharp and Jeff Fleege and Mark Wagner talking about, the number one thing that we can do at CCAD for the warfighter is keep downward pressure on our rates. And it's not just for the unit funded cost of the things we produce. It's so that we can be competitive and attractive to not just those we have existing partnerships with, who have maybe a vested interest in the plant, but to those who may wish to partner with CCAD. So we understand that that's very critical, and thank you for pointing that out.
I think I'm probably speaking for all the partners here. I would say that if we could get to cost neutral, if it was between CCAD and somebody else, I prefer to go to CCAD because there's a lot of other advantages I can take advantage of by being a partner and having other ways to draw revenue. So I would prefer CCAD. I really want CCAD to be cost competitive, and I want to do everything we can to make them that way. So
we're working hard on it. The chasing that those labor hours going from 5 million to 3 million and getting our expenses in line with that, and what really has been about an 18-month period has proven to be a challenge. But we are all over it, and I think we demonstrate that in the numbers of folks we have still on board compared to the last 2 years, and also the amount of material we've been able to stop from showing up collectively. That's collectively with us, with our DLA partners and others to try to mitigate that. Any thoughts on that, Creston or Jeff, Mark, Bob? Cool.
We're focused on cost. As the Colonel says, we've downsized we are focused on cost. And as the Colonel says, we have done significant downsizing of our workforce. We understand the workforce is one of the biggest contributors to cost. Over 1,200 people, almost 1/3 down in the past 2 years since July of 2013. That's because the workload isn't there, and we don't want to get into the downward spiral of you don't have the work, you still have the workforce, your rates go up, and then you become less competitive. We have experienced the pain at the depot. All the directors have experienced that. We've done it as a team effort at CCAD, and we're keeping our eye on the future. And part of that, and John Jensen mentioned it too, is we have to be focused on cost and keep the quality up at the same time.
Yeah, you've got to arrest that spiral, and once you start putting work in, everything starts going the opposite direction, and that's really.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
if we have some more time later, I'll talk about an insurance policy that's being worked by General Vi and his staff at AMC for the Defense Industrial Base. We actually manage our facilities costing expenses, I should say, our facilities expenses inside the all-cost model. So inside of our nonprofit, as we build our rate, it's all part of our overhead. That is not the case for the shipyards, for the Navy, and some of the air bases.
If you could change that one accounting practice.
Yep. It would
make all the difference.
It would stabilize, because my expensing rate, we look at the expensing rate since 2000, say, look all the way back, I think we've looked at it back, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, to 2003. The expensing rate over the course of the last decade for CCAD has never fluctuated more than $20 across that. So we have that in hand. We're able to manage that. What we can't manage is the $250 million it costs to run the plant over periods of rapidly descending and expanding workload. Expanding workload is good. When it descends down and we're spreading that overhead across fewer labor hours, that's when we're hurt. Okay. One of my favorite topics to talk about. Okay. Mr. Reed, Scott, sir, over the last 10-plus years of partnership with CCAD, you've watched our efforts with continuous process improvement as we strive to meet the demands of the warfighter. How have we grown and improved most? And if you were the CCAD commander for a day, what best business practice from your plants and organization would you drive into our culture and organization to help us meet our quality, schedule, and cost requirements?
Okay, thanks, Colonel. Good question. First of all, my name's Scott Reed. I work for General Electric. We were actually the first CCAD partner back in the year 2000, as I recall. So we've been here for a while, and we're very proud to be there. So I got a two-part devil. Number one, where have we grown? So I thought about it and came up with 4 areas that I've seen over the years. One is RTAT, incorporating commercial practices, and basically reducing RTAT by about 50%, over that time frame. Today, the RTAT is meeting customer needs, and which is obviously the key thing. So that was one of the things that was a huge focus very early in the partnership. Partnership goals. Partnership goals were established 3 or 4 years ago. We've got 8 of them for General Electric. They're kind of a subset of your big 5, the typical things. But those goals helped us several years ago focus on what we needed to do as a good partner, and that made a big difference. LMP, John Cerreta mentioned that as far as data, it's huge. Its potential is enormous. We're going to be able to understand parts needs, replacement rates, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that'll be very interesting as that gets rolled out more and more. And you guys are spending a huge amount of effort and energy on that, as you should be. And the last one, which I added, was collaboration. We've had great collaboration, and this is really geared towards forecasting between ALC, CCAD, and GE. And forecasting, as we all know, is really critical to parts that someone had earlier, a briefing mentioned, are 2-year lead time devils. So you've got to forecast 2 years ago. I mean, if you get the part, somebody ordered it 2 years ago. And so forecasting is key, and we've had a very good relationship between your team, ALC, and GE, working that very hard. And so that's a good on everybody. So part 2, if I was the commander for probably take a little bit more than a day to do these, but at any rate, and a lot of them actually do have a cost ramification. The first one is we GE have been at the depot a lot, studying a lot. Jeff Hesplip was one of our master black belts who's come down actually recently, and I talked to Jeff and we talked it over a little bit, and one of them is first time yield is equal to 1. So I'm trying to keep it kind of simple, but if you really could think about it, your Artisan of the Year, that was a comment that was made about the Artisan of the Year. His first time yield is equal to 1. So what do? You eliminate rework, redo, reinspec, and basically you ferret out the hidden factory. And the costs of that are enormous. We spend a lot of time at GE on engineering processes as well as shop processes, working towards first-time yield is equal to 1. You don't want any defects. You don't want to order parts twice. You don't want to do all this extra stuff. And I think there's a huge thing that is somewhat easy to understand because everybody say, well, yeah, I don't want to do it twice. And I think if you can figure out a way to mobilize, I think that would be tremendous. The overarching goals, the big 5, and the other ones you have are tremendous. But it can be a little bit daunting. I mean, you can't take safety away, right? I mean, you can't take inventory, you can't take any of them away because they all have to be done. And as a plant manager, you're responsible to make sure everything is done, even though you don't have enough resources and all the rest of it. But our experience is if you concentrate on something, which it probably would be cost, you identify a bunch of black belts, some really good people, and you guys have been trained in that. And then you get them on a topic and measure them. And we actually, in the beginning of Six Sigma, we actually had our financial organization, I won't say audit, but they kind of did. They went in there to make sure that those savings were real. And we pushed it really hard that way, and it was very, very effective. It was painful, but it was very effective. And the last one that I'd like to add, which is a little bit strange, but is condition-based maintenance. You know, Kevin Reese we're working with him on a program where you know, how do you use CBM to make a difference in the depot? And so this is, in your terminology, sir, this is thinking about to the left of induction, right? If I know what that engine or anything else, what it's going to need when it's here, because I know 2 months, 3 months, you know, whatever it is, amount of time ahead of time, what's wrong with it, at least somewhat, you're going to make a big difference. We do that big time in our commercial engines, but commercial engines cost like millions and millions of dollars, and so it's worth that effort. But I think if we can all figure out how to break that nut and make it useful for the depot, there might be something there. But it's hard. It's data rights and you know, John, is some of the stuff that you were talking about too. So, but I think there's a winner in there somewhere. So,
Thank you, sir, for that forthright answer. I appreciate that. So I'm going to open it up to questions. I've got one in the back, and I can put my glasses on.
Geez, I
Is
thought
that
you
Mr. McLaughlin back there?
Yes, it is, sir.
Cool.
CW4 McLaughlin, Corpus Christi Army Depot. In regards to your discussion about bringing our first-time yield equal to 1, you said one of your master black belts came down to the depot and looked around, and you talked about having a conversation with him. What did he see? How are we different from General Electric, and what can we do to assist us in bringing that closer to 1?
well, I think GE's been on the kick for a first-time yield you know, of 1 for many years, and it's not an easy thing to do. But his observations are, and we could talk to Jeff to get it exactly, but I'll just paraphrase it. His observations was there's just a lot of rework that's accepted, and you can get the job done, and that's okay. But it's just not as efficient as if you don't do that. Now, in order to get out of rework, you have to fix the issue, which costs you know, money and time and effort and all the rest of the things, and you don't want to give up production. So it's a mix there. But I can have Jeff, and I don't know if he gave you more.
He did,
Yeah.
he gave me a personal app brief, and I think Kim was there as well for that, and maybe not. Okay, so I was there, so I'll be happy to share it with you. There is, you know, there's a certain number of excuses, I think, that exist in our plant. And I think that, you know, so we brag and we brag about the attention we pay to flight critical. And I think sometimes we use that, maybe that not necessarily as bragging rights, but I think we use that as to excuse away, potentially, some of the rework that we do. I think, if I remember Jeff's words, I'll paraphrase it because I don't remember his exact words, but he talked about the pride that the artisans have in the fact that when it gets a CCAD sticker on it and somebody opens that container, that soldiers are confident in putting that material on their weapons systems. And that the goal of making that just right in some cases causes us to it becomes an excuse in some cases. So I think that's part of it. I think that's part of what he saw. I know that I wasn't the only person in there. Creston, Robert.
Another point he brought out is where our quality program works, especially in the airframe side, is that we can have an inspector come in and find an issue, and we will correct it, and then it'll go down the line a little bit, and someone else, and the new inspector will come in and find a similar issue in the same spot or root out the old issue. We are re-inspecting ourselves in the rework. You didn't know how that is part of the waste.
Yep.
Yeah,
One of the 70 wastes.
if I can add something to that, Garner.
Please.
So I've kind of been on both sides of the track here, and So Boeing's been on this first pass yield journey, and and we're on it right now in a big way, as we're really trying to figure out how do we come lower cost, how do we get the price of our aircraft down, how do we get our price of our products down in this environment. The largest opportunity to reduce cost is in first pass yield. So you're not alone. Everybody's struggling with this. You know, it's got to be a big topic, and I think if you can dollarize it, people sit up and listen because they understand how important it is.
Right. I
And
know
one of
Mark
the-
is taking notes somewhere. There he is.
And one of the pushing factors for GE was when we actually looked at the cycle time to design an engine, and it's long, and that's just a competitive disadvantage by having that, and because that engineering cycle has a lot of redos in it, and so the question is how do you force that? So that's one of the reasons why the impetus. We've always done it in test cells, and I know that CCAD does it in test cells too. You measure first time yield, and that's pretty simple, and it's powerful, but you need to push it. So.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Oh, one back there. Go ahead, Sergeant Major.
Get ready for a
Don't know
big
if
voice.
you can hear me, but my name is Theodore Humphrey, and I work for Corpus Christi Army Depot. And I would like to talk to the guy from Honeywell.
All right. It's Chris.
Chris, I screwed
Chris,
that up.
Scott.
It's Chris.
It's Chris, Scott.
That's all right, sir, whatever it is. I guess my question is right now we have Honeywell as our partner. They're doing a great job for us, helping us with the consoles and one of our T-55 test cells. And I guess my question is we tend to correlate with our test cells with your Honeywell test cells, and so therefore we do the same thing. We try and produce the same quality of product using the same numbers and data. I keep hearing each one of you talk about data, and I understand how important data is. One of my issues is that because I have to go to you as well as GE and ensure that our test cells are running the same, I guess my question is to you is, how do we be able to get this data, pull it down, be able to get it to you as a partnership, and we receive the answer back or that data back, whether or not it is right or wrong or indifferent, so that I am not stopping production and having to wait for a long period of time.
Thomas, I think you could probably help out with that one. With regard to the data and how we're going to be able to, or maybe John, is Johnny still in the room? Johnny can talk a little bit about how we're going to be doing that with an LMP. Different question?
This is the correlation data, I think, for the test cells. In other words, between the test cells in Phoenix and test cells that we run T-55 engines in Greer and the test cells here at CCAD. Amongst Honeywell, or within Honeywell, all that's fed into the same test cell group in Phoenix, so we can provide that immediate feedback. We are looking into a different program called a DARE that will allow us then to mine that data out of CCAD so that you can get the same type of feedback on performance issues that we are able to share amongst ourselves when we do it both at Greer and Phoenix. So there is a portal available. Happy to talk to you as to whether or not we can bring that in our next increment to share that kind of data and provide that kind of feedback.
Sounds like you guys need to talk.
Sounds like a good opportunity. Because we do the same thing. We are doing engines both in Phoenix and Greer, all to the same requirements. It's data, comes out of the cell, gets fed in, the same performance group is there to help analyze whether or not what those requirements are to fix things in the cell, and if you're running into performance issues. And we have our hangar queens too. And it's not 100% guaranteed, but it certainly allows us to communicate and share that data amongst all of us who are in the midst of developing and building these engines.
Anybody else? EJ, that's an example right there of one of the great benefits of these things where guys hook up.
Chris, I'm really sorry I screwed up your name.
No. I like Scott. It was better. It was actually my first choice, but my parents were married. They were married to Chris. You know.
First round, I got you first.
All
I got
right,
your
all
first beer.
Let's give the panel a round of applause. They did a great job. Thanks, Kern.
Chris.
Sure. Yes, sir.
21.
Yes, John, thanks.
No more time?
Yes, sir.
Well, this concludes the afternoon session. Actually, a little bit early, so Garner was right. People are ready to go have a beer or a drink or something to eat out there. Again, let me remind you that General Electric is hosting an informal social in the Harbor Plaza immediately following this. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. Thank you. Good job. Thank you, guys.